I would say
All right.
The pink
Welcome
pearl
back.
is better.
Oh, wow, that's
I've got some, I didn't
So
even
this
think
is-
about using them.
I saw you struggling.
Yeah, no, I did.
Valerie's, I don't know if it's in the picture. This was her still life she set up at home. She did color. Of course, she didn't, you know,
I
she went
didn't
ahead.
have white things,
She
except
didn't
the
have
toilet
white things.
paper.
And sometimes it's a little tricky seeing white on white. And basically why I do it is for today, the white on white. Now, if you look at her drawing, it's very good.
Yeah.
You have to think, this woman
And
has
the
only
accountant,
had
for God's
3
sake.
hours of
That's great.
instruction,
That's really good.
you know? I'm blown away.
But my new rulers helped.
Yeah, and we'll talk about those in a
Okay.
sec. But, so we were talking about, remember we talked about the lighthouse curve,
Yeah.
right? And how it, if it's at your, the circle is at your, I can't do it. The-
And you can see it though, the toilet paper should be flatter on
Right, it's
top.
basically a circle, so if it's at your eye level, that circle, it's a line. But as it gets further down, the curve gets deeper until you're looking straight down on it and it's a circle again. So something was a little bit off here. Let's see back here so you can all see it a little better. And we talked about that, how this base curve of the toilet paper roll should be deeper than the top curve. And the same with the curves at the base of these. This one works well. These should probably be a little deeper curve, remember, because even though they're sitting on a flat table, what we're going to be seeing is a curve.
Is the curve.
A little bit of a curve. That's almost a dead giveaway so often of a beginning artist. You know, oh, it's on the table, boom, flat on the bottom. But these are not, so she's doing well. But then I looked at her photo, which was taken before or after.
Before.
It was taken before.
Well, during,
During.
I
So-
set that up, took the picture and then sat down.
Okay. If you're going to take a photo to kind of compare after, because it's better to draw from life if you can. But in her photo, the top of the roll is almost at eye level, and there's hardly any curve at all. It's almost a flat line. So if you are going to take a photo to double check, make sure you take it exactly at the same
Yeah.
place where your eyes are.
But then when I sat down, I was higher and saw more of the center of the toilet paper, so that was drawn from the real stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So what if you want the toilet paper roll to be recognized as a toilet paper roll? And it doesn't?
You don't recognize?
No, well, now I
I do.
do. Because, what she's saying is, you know, that it should have been flatter on top, so.
Oh, right, in that case, how do you know? You just know that it's a cylinder. You might not know exactly that it's a toilet paper roll. I mean, if you want it,
If you want it to be accurate. But poetic license is.
again, talking the things we were talking about, number one thing is your form. You want the forms to be solid. Your sphere, your cube, your cylinder, that needs to be strong. The shading will help enhance the form. But the form has to be first. It has to be right first before you start shading, because that'll just cover it up, and a good eye will see through that. Then there's the enhancement, the surface decoration. That's kind of extra stuff. Like if you're doing a 20/20, oh my goodness, you know, toilet paper, we need that. How do you make it seem the roll, the whole, and maybe a little something hanging, you know, off. But a sheet hanging off has a way of flowing too, so that's a thing to think about.
No, that was too complicated.
No, don't do that. Not yet.
I'm sure you could do it.
Yes,
Yes, you
I'm up
could.
to it.
I do.
But do study it, because you guys are just in the wrong place
know.
back there. A sheet of
No.
toilet paper, right, a little square, can you spare a square, is, it's a flat, so it's flat. If it's this, it's gonna be very flat. If you're looking straight on, it will be this. But normally, it's coming down and it's curving. If it's gonna be sitting on a table or something, look at that complex curve. So how are you gonna consider that? In shading, you have to wrap it around 2 cylinders. There's an upper cylinder here and an outside cylinder that way. So if you think of it as parts of two cylinders, you have now the tools to do that. You can say, okay, this is the top of a cylinder, and then it blends into the bottom side of another cylinder.
And you kind of sketch in those cylinders like we sketch in the circles?
Yeah, I would at first, until you're comfortable doing it. So, you know, if you wanted to, you think, oh, here's a cylinder. And then maybe there's another cylinder down here. So I'm just thinking, because I'm not looking at anything right now. So here's the back side of that piece of paper. And this is one cylinder. A cylinder like this, and then another cylinder there. Can you see how I'm envisioning that? So this paper is gonna curve up over this cylinder here, and then it's gonna go down under that side of that cylinder there. And then when you learn more about shading, then you can shade it to make that work better for you.
And you see the treatment.
That's not great. And I'm messing it up more than I was doing. But do you see how it kind of, so by wrapping it around the cylinder, it would work better, my perspective's off. Again, this is, when you're standing here, this is not a good way to stand. That's why you always see artists standing back, getting away from their work. Come back, correct it early on before you get too far. I've messed it up, but hopefully you get the idea. All right, any questions on things? Should
Yeah, I had a question on, with this. Like, how do you get that so that it looks?
Again, now you have a cylinder, but it's curved cylinder, so part of it's coming at you. She has a handle on a picture. So if you have a handle, like a finger,
Well, I got it from your picture.
Yeah, you
That's
have
what we had.
the picture had a handle
Yeah,
in what you sent to it.
you know, this.
You don't like your own picture.
I know, this is what, because once you learn those basic forms, you can combine them. To make anything, you can combine them to make a picture, to make a hand. Maybe I'll show you that next week. I don't want to get too far now, but this is actually made up of a flattened cube and cylinders at different angles. But you do a cylinder at a different angle, then kind of follow that skin outline, put skin on it. You got it? If it's coming at you, your cylinder's coming at you, or to the side, or down. By understanding the basic forms, you can draw anything. Do you feel like you have power now? Handle.
At least
So-
enlightenment.
I'm gonna be thinking of that handle that you just showed me. It's kind of coming out this way. It attaches here, and then it's a cylinder. So this is where it attaches to the picture. Then it's coming out at me. So I've got this kind of coming this way. So I'm gonna think cylinder all the way down. So what I've done is I've drawn these circles around the outside, this circumferences of this. And then you go like, oh, okay. Attaches on there, attaches on there. You know, so basically, kind of there it is, by thinking of it that way. And then all these little lines, you know, will disappear. Yep. So you have the highlight up here, depends on where the light's coming from. And then you fit, you know, just kind of work at it until it looks like a handle.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
These are very nice, may I? Yeah. So this very nice. Is this from one of the,
It's from my, something I've set
you
up.
set up a still life? It's nice. Looks like you've really measured nicely. Couple tiny, I mean, it's wonderful, it really is. Again, ladies, 3 hours, you know, and I've tried to throw a bunch of stuff at you. I'm just noticing tiny, tiny details. Try not to have things intersect right there. Like, see, the side of that is touching it. Overlap one a little bit over the other, break that line. But it looks like you're seeing very well. The box doesn't feel quite like these are
No.
parallel,
It's not quite right.
and it just, maybe just a little hint of bringing that down to make it converge up
I
in the
find the
distance.
angles difficult to figure out, you know.
Valerie's gonna share her idea with us in a moment.
Okay.
Don't let me forget that.
Okay.
So these are
After you
3
count.
glass bottles.
Oh, class.
Poor choice, huh?
Very nice. No, they're tricky.
They're
Tricky
tricky, and I got
glass.
the proportions, I think, on the 2 to the right, but the fat one on the left of the page is just not right.
Is this Matus?
No, they're actually, wood, you could have,
It's like a
like,
woman who's drunk something.
it actually looks
What about the
like,
next two then? That's
That's
it.
right,
it looks
that's
like
But it has the
this.
shape of a Matus bottle.
Yeah,
Oh, those are beautiful.
but those were, so,
Yeah, next should be the neck is
a little too tall, almost as tall.
it looks like it's almost over 3/4 of it.
Okay.
This one. But that's very good. Glass, the reason I kind of made a face with glass is, it's complex. You have the form first. Then we're gonna talk about the shading, which deals with the surface of the object. Glass refracts and reflects. Very, very complex. So you have layer upon layer upon layer. But these are very close. The relationship is really good. That's really nice. No, it sounds like
Were
me.
we
I still
supposed
do
to,
it.
were we supposed to,
There was no supposed
shade?
to.
No, I always jump ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, she
And I
must
couldn't
get
get my
my
lines right, so.
That's
Yes,
the
on
reason.
the 8
This
plus
looks like
two.
shading.
Very nice. I can't, this looks just a little hint off
Yeah,
here.
I had a lot of trouble with that. I redid it about 3 times.
Valerie she went to Michael's to buy some see-through rulers. She got this and this.
I hope you're gonna continue to draw after this.
Yeah.
You kidding? All the gizmos are fun.
It's the best part.
Yep.
You should have seen me when I
No,
bought a
but
kayak.
It's
Oh,
pretty
my
close, because I'm
God.
comparing this to that. But if you brought it down even just a hint more as it goes to the distance. And then this one, those look good, but
Okay.
this looks like it's up that way a
And
little
it
bit.
should be exactly parallel. Right.
At least parallel,
It's not
slightly
a little bit less.
converging.
Converging.
So
I know good shows here.
Oh, very nice. What do you mean you didn't catch
Well,
anything?
I played.
Look, and you're converging too.
And I played.
And she shaded.
Nice.
That's very good.
We are the
Very
8 plus
nice.
students.
Practice objects.
I could have looked at it myself.
My box looks off.
What looks a little off to me, Kristen, right off, is that you're looking kind of down in the box and you're looking across at the jars.
Mm.
So you have two different points of view going on. This one, you're looking at the jars like they're here, but you're looking at the box like it's down here.
Okay.
So if the top of these, again, talking about the toilet paper.
Toilet paper.
If those were looking also down, then
I
that,
see. Okay.
just that, sometimes it's just one
Yeah, that one.
small thing that throws it off. Ladies, you got some, right? You did a bird. Beautiful little bird, I love him.
Oh, thank you.
But if you're trying to relax, do those brush strokes over and over. All right. Any specific questions? All right, shading.
Should I show my angle gizmo though, just in case? I had trouble getting when a box sits just like that. How the heck do I figure out that angle? So with these see-through rulers, I went like this and I got the flat plane. Then I held up another one of these rulers and went, ah, that's it. Then I went here to my document, to my paper, held it against the flat plane, and bingo, that was the corner of the box.
That's a pretty neat trick.
I'm gonna just show the video, so, yeah, holding, because that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So if you find the base of your box and then the angle that it goes off, and then you can switch it for the other angle.
Yep, that's it.
This is great for learning. Try not to get dependent on these.
Well, I
Eventually
only
not
had 3
now, but-
hours of training.
Told you that.
But see-through helped.
Yeah. Valerie was saying earlier that she, which I don't know how, but some of us are more apt to see spatially or be spatially oriented
Right.
as to just different ways. I believe there are, what do we call it? I did this whole dissertation on this. The intelligences. Howard's intelligences. So there's all these different intelligences. Some people are musically intelligent, have some musical intelligence, your spatial, your mathematical, all these different ones. And I believe we all have a blend of all of them, but some are more prominent in each of us. So mine, I'm very spatially oriented. I think three-dimensionally. Why I'm painting, I don't know. I do know why, because I wanted to do sculpture, but I lived in Maine, and you couldn't even sell two-dimensional art in Maine. How are you gonna sell three-dimensional art? That was my rationale.
Whatever works.
Wish I'd done sculpture too.
There is a book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain.
The
that
Nicolaides one?
I-
Or that, is that
No,
on the
Betty
left
Wil-
side of the
I
brain?
think her name's
Left.
Betty Edwards.
Edwards,
Is
yeah.
it on the left?
There's one that's on the left side and there's one on the right side,
I-
which, but then there's scientists that tell us, no, we use all the brain, all the time.
Because it was interesting, when I went to art school and I read it, and it's really talking about what you're saying, spatial relations, and like, they made you draw a chair upside down. So you're
Mhm.
not focusing on the
Mm.
chair itself, but you're focusing on spatial relation and saying, okay, this relates this way, here's the negative space.
Yes.
You're working on negative space. So
Yeah.
it was interesting, so someone like an accountant may relate to that.
And you're looking at the abstract shapes and the
Right.
relationships of those
Yeah.
rather than, oh, this is a chair. Because we get caught up.
Mhm.
I was doing a portrait of my father and his dog. Sometimes you're too close to the
Mm.
subject matter.
Mm.
So I did that. I had a photograph, because he had deceased already. Turned the photo upside down, started the painting,
Yeah.
just the upside down
Oh.
abstract
Because it gives
thing.
you a different, like, you're not really focusing on what it is, you're focusing on shapes and
Huh.
relationships.
Huh.
And it takes time for us, because we've been trained in so many other ways, it takes time for us to train ourselves to see differently, and we can. I wanna simplify, I don't wanna go totally abstract, but I want my artwork to be more toward the abstract, more, so I can emote more with it, instead of people getting caught up in the details that I'm doing. This week I've got a international show I have to submit to, and I don't know what painting to send in. I'm just like, I don't know, because I really wanna get in this, it's one of the big ones. So, shading today, sorry, tangent there. Building on our form, still, make sure our forms are solid, square, sphere, cylinder, get those ideas. And you can see how we can work other forms off from those. Once you have your form down, solid, then we can shade. So, how do we shade? I have, did I send out one of the shading things?
Send out the,
Yes.
yep.
Did. Okay, good. Most artists deal with 10 values. So if you have a value scale, and it's really good to try to get 10. So 1 for most people is white, and 10 would be black. I've seen a couple people that flip that around, but that's the best way. So, this is why I gave you this really messy black one. You want black, you're gonna get black. With graphite pencil, our regular leaded pencils, you're not going to get it's gonna turn into a shiny charcoal gray. White, you want pure white if you can, and then in between. So a 5 would be pretty much even. And it's good to practice a scale like this and to have it in a notebook. Try it out. So here, these are my two tools, the dark charcoal and my vine charcoal. I have a big piece of vine charcoal here, you guys have the thin one. With the vine charcoal, sometimes off to the side, I'll put some charcoal down, pick it up with my finger, and then I can just put enough on there to make a very, very light tone. These are your values from 1 to 10. The light ones are tints, if it's a color, and the dark ones are shades. Just kind of general speaking. So then we want to try to get a good variation from 1 to 10. And I don't really have one. With the vine charcoal, it's nice because you can, it's flexible. It'll go very light. That's not very, perfect, but. So those, and in a drawing, we want to do those. So what I'll often do is once I set down a drawing to get as much of a value scale as I can, I'll preserve my whites, because we don't have paint here. We have to leave, the paper is going to be our white, and get down to our darkest darks, to our blacks. So I'll have a white area, a black area, and if you do just that, that's called a no tan. Just FYI, if you hear people talking about no tan, that's a Japanese term. That means you've taken a photo or something and turn it to its simplest, black and white. Boom. You add 1 shade of gray in there, and now you're in a value drawing, or a thumbnail. And thumbnails are great to do before you do any sort of drawing or painting, is because it helps you plan out your composition and your construction and your relationships and your proportions and all the things we talked about already. So I'll plan my ones and my blacks, my whites and my blacks, and at least 1 to 2 gray tones. Chances are, unless you spend a lot of time, you're not going to get a whole value range from 1 to 10. But if you have 4 or 5, that's a good amount. Yes?
I noticed, sorry, I noticed with the charcoal, there's like roundy ones that look like more like this, and then there's that flat kind. How do you, I kept getting pencil marks. See, there was a skinny one like this.
Mm-hmm.
This is vine.
Mm-hmm.
Then do you use it on its side? Do you break it into little pieces?
Yes.
That's yours anyway, so.
Yeah, that's yours. Great. This is more, you can use it for different things that way. I go in, people open a box of pastels and they're like, I don't want to touch all the interesting colors, and there's a little paper around it, and you take the paper off and you break those things. You can't really use them otherwise. I saw a guy the other day. Yours has a little bump on it. I'm not, that's, you can see.
Yeah.
Look,
it
this
looks
was
like
a twig.
Yep, I saw that. I thought, isn't that gonna bother us?
Now, when you first do this, you are going to get, let me see if I have a sharp one.
And then there's these square ones. Now they
You'll
look
get,
easier.
this is fresh and new. That's not too bad. But sometimes you'll get, the edge will sharp, it'll pop out. So just kind of use it off to the side a few times. See how it was uneven in the middle? Until you get that smoothness that you want.
Because when I used the graphite pencils, I kept getting pencil marks, and I kept trying to get it less and less sharp. So I should have moved to my vine.
On your graphite, there are, I think Kristen has them, graphite sticks too.
Yeah, I found one on the floor.
Right? This is a graphite stick. Okay, so it's like a pencil, but you can wear down the outside, so you have an area of shading instead of trying to do all your shading with lines.
And that'd be better for your lighter grayscale.
That would be like, yeah, but do not mix graphite and charcoal on one piece of paper. Is that what you were kind of thinking?
Yeah.
Why?
Because graphite.
Good
question.
Thank you for that question, Andy. I will answer this.
Plan.
Because graphite is slick. And if you put graphite on,
Better write that down. I'd be tempted.
and this one right here, there's a coating on the outside. Yeah, graphite and charcoal, now watch it mix, it'll probably work. That doesn't show it well. Of course. Should have prepared this ahead of time. Okay, I'll comment on it, but anyway,
Are you saying not to mix them or not to use them on the same piece?
not use them on the same piece, which I
Okay.
mean mixing them. The graphite is a slick surface and it will resist the charcoal. The charcoal is very soft,
It needs to almost grab into, that's
particle.
why you had us get kind of
kind of a
toothy paper.
textured paper because it needs something to hang on to. But see, once it's down, look what your charcoal will do. Graphite really, it can do that to a bit, but not too
Not
much.
that much, no.
So as you blend, you can blend it along to your lighter end. So you get this nice gradual shading by blending your charcoal. You get dirty. Somebody said, oh, I tried pastels, but I couldn't take it, it just is too, which is true, some people don't like that, but I do. I think I mentioned before, I like clay, I like earth, I like charcoal and pastel, and
Now,
my
is-
hands wash off.
Is it cheating to get one of these graphite ones that are water soluble? Then you can take water and do your,
Can do that. I have never used those.
oh,
I
Michael's
would
got
imagine-
stuck, seemed fun.
It's like a watercolor pencil,
Yes,
so yeah,
okay.
so you can do that. Again, because it's graphite though, that's slick, if you're thinking of it microscopically, you're thinking of little slick particles laying on your paper very flat. Charcoal is particles that wanna kinda chunk up. And they're not necessarily, they're not going to adhere, they're not gonna hang on to that shiny surface. I mean, it will to a point, obviously, it will to a point. Let's see if I wipe this off. What happens? Well, I'm on newsprint too, sheet of paper. You guys have better paper than I do here.
Yeah, that's too slick to really do.
So your value scale, how are we doing? This is awful, because I'm recording, I can't have enough time. How are we doing on time? I'll ask you guys.
10:30.
Okay. So, this is something I learned quite young, because my mother was a teacher too. Highlight, core, reflected light, shadow. If you learn highlight, core, reflected light, and shadow, then that will help you get accurate shading. If you notice in here, I have the blending light in the core, and I'll explain what kind of each one of these are. I have the arrows there, but, so, I just remember as a kid going, highlight, core, reflected light, shadow, and then I check, where's my highlight, where's my core, where's my reflected light, where's my shadow? And you start thinking about that without being that conscious of it after a while. Choose a tool. I'm going to go with this one. So, on, say, a sphere. Guys see, okay? See the light's coming from here. So, the sphere is this way. Remember, it's not just this way, it's also coming out at us this way and this way, so we're thinking all about that. If I were to imagine, generally speaking, because in every situation it can be a little different, but generally speaking, my highlight on my sphere is gonna be near where the light's gonna hit it, not right on the edge, and it is going to follow the shape of the ball. Now, I'm gonna balloon it. We would not balloon it in reality if we're drawing. It should kind of follow the shape of this. Because it follows that curve.
So same curve, okay.
But once we get going, we're not gonna draw that, but I'm just showing you where it is. The core, that's the highlight. So the core is gonna be away from the object, from the light, on the object. And it's gonna follow that curve again. So see how by understanding that this is round, it's not just round this way, it's round all around, it's going to follow that curve. Then, of course, it's gonna blend up toward the highlight. The reflected light is any light that goes down from our light source, bounces off the table or whatever surface is the ball is sitting on, and it bounces back. So even though, and I'm gonna outline this, which you shouldn't, but there it is. If this is the back side of the ball, even though it's further away from the light source than the core, right? Here's the core. Because it's receiving some reflected light, it's not gonna be quite as dark.
I noticed that and thought, why the heck is it light there on the back? I would have expected it to be all dark.
But now you can see that, right? That it's
Yeah.
getting some reflected light. And then again, up here. Unless it's right underneath, and then it's not gonna get anything because there's a shadow underneath, and there's nothing to reflect, so this might be. But then you start working into intricacies. Like, okay, here's your highlight, here's your core, here's your reflected light. But over here, there's another object that's bouncing another, some more light off, so then it gets more complex. Start simple, and then build on that. And then your shadow, which is gonna be down under here. This ball is casting a shadow from the light. How do we determine where that is? The light's coming down, it hits the top of the ball as if it's coming, here comes the light, here comes the light, it's coming down. It's gonna bounce down that way, and then it's coming down this way, and it's gonna come here. Now, it's gonna hit, that shadow is gonna hit the table from here to here. That's the extent of that shadow. Knowing what we know about objects in space, if this were a ball and the light were directly above it, the shadow would be a circle, right? It would be a perfect circle looking straight down it. But it's not, because we've taken our circle and now we've laid that circle down on a table. So we're gonna have that ellipse. It's gonna come off the edge of this, out to here, and I've run out of paper.
I did too, I had to move.
I kinda outline it at first, just to give me an idea where it is, but I don't do a heavy outline, because in reality, there's no line there. It's just a slow blending. But that will help guide me as to where I'm going. And of course, as it's closer, so there, highlight, core, the reflected light.
And how'd you get that angle on?
This, I'm imagining my light source is up here, so
Okay.
this is where the light is coming. It hits the ball, gets blocked by the ball, so the shadow ends up down to there, and from there, down to there.
Is it kind of a parallel lines?
No, I just ran out of room. This is the edge of my paper, so this should curve.
No, I mean the light source coming down.
Oh, good question. The question is it parallel lines for the light?
Yeah, good question.
Are they?
It looks like.
No,
Why?
because it's kind of distance, it has to converge or convex or whatever.
So it
the
depends
opposite.
on how far away the light source is. Right. If it's the sun, for us, it appears almost parallel, but actually even out from the sun, it's, coming out a little bit. This is closer, so that's why, is your light source coming from here, boom, or is your light source coming from there? Boom. Thinking about that will help you figure out where the shadow goes. Now again, so we're getting a little more complex, this is, again, no balloony outline on this. So what we'll do for the highlight is normally I blend the vine charcoal, so it's very soft. Pick up my wonderful kneaded eraser. Who was it that had the bad eraser? Did you get a good eraser?
Well,
Was that you,
this
the
one is
one
for
that fell
charcoal,
apart?
this one I see is for charcoal. I still don't have a great one for graphite, but, this works really well.
This works pretty
Charcoal.
well for graphite. That doesn't work that well for graphite.
Exactly,
A
yeah.
plastic eraser like this is probably better for graphite. Yeah, Pam insisted, she says, you gotta let them start with graphite. I just want them to go to charcoal. So, and then you could just erase out a highlight. That doesn't show very well on there, but it works nicely that way. Then you have a nice soft gradation from the highlight to the area around it. There's no, under the shadow, we talked about the reflected light here bouncing back here, but under the sphere is shadow, so there's no reflected light. So then you start going like, okay, so actually right here on the sphere, it's gonna be pretty dark because there's no light to be reflected. And then what if there's an object over here that's bright white and it's bouncing off and then it's coming back on this side, then this is gonna have a secondary highlight, not as bright as the first highlight, but second. So you can start thinking about these other things. Valerie had a couple candles in her drawing because she had shaded them. She did very well. She had two light sources, a big window and an overhead light was the other one?
No, I was out in a porch in the corner.
Okay, so two different windows.
Yeah.
But it was two sources of light, and in here we have however many. So she did that on the candles. But if you look at the photos of the candles, because they're candles, the wax is somewhat translucent, like the glass. Glass is really, it's fascinating, but it's tricky, so challenge yourself. But it's better to understand all these other things first. That translucency, so the light would go into the candle and start to kind of bounce around inside the candle and make it glow. Hi, Michelle. Look, I can recognize you.
I know. It's the visor.
It's the hair, actually, is what it was. All right, this, questions up to this point? I've information in my head, and I think being a teacher, I try to be accurate. And there's a going thing in teaching community lately that people will call a tone drawing a no can. I was like, no, it's not a no. Well, look it up. Look up no can. It's black and white. Then I try to be very encouraging and stuff. I was telling her I was in somebody's house the other day. She said, oh, I did this painting, and she hasn't really taken any art, and she had taken a couple classes way back. Did a nice little painting, and it was a coffee grinder box, one of those old-fashioned ones. Sure enough, the box, front of the box looked fine, and the back of the box went like this. And you guys know the lines have to converge, so. If you see that in someone's house, just say, oh, what a beautiful little drawing. Unless they ask, like, how would you critique this? I don't even in my, usually here, I mean, you're here to learn. But if a friend of mine says, look, I need some help on this, I won't really critique them unless they ask me to. Because sometimes they just want you to go, that's really nice, which it is.
No, I want you to critique me when I.
Well,
ask
you're in
you.
class now, so you get it. All right. No questions. Either you guys are really fast at understanding, or I'm just amazing.
No, I don't have enough grasp to even figure out what the question is. It almost almost looks like there's two or did I do that wrong? Yep, I did that wrong. So there's not two highlights.
No.
This should be
There would be two if there were two light
light
sources.
sources.
So, what's graphite here and what's,
You had these grays for right now, can we put these away?
yeah, yeah. I'll put
I mean, that's fine, but those are just gray tones, which hopefully we'll try to,
Okay.
Okay, so we
acquire with
want, I wanna be using just these, is that right?
these. That looks, this is a graphite, see how it's kinda shiny?
Yeah, so that's different,
I'm
right?
not actually sure what these are, they're,
Okay.
they're compressed,
No, I'm
this will be compressed charcoal, which will get you some nice blacks. Do you have a bind charcoal thing? Yeah, one of these sticks. Oh, look, she's got a little nib on hers too.
So this is graphite?
That looks like, yes, I can tell at the end there it's shining.
Okay, so I need some charcoal.
It's fine.
I didn't have to ask a really basic question, but that's where I am.
Ooh, thank you.
So you think these are good to use?
I would play with those another time, try them at some point.
Okay,
I would break one,
okay, go
so
ahead.
just a
yeah.
little, yeah, get a little piece of
I
it.
just wanna
And,
make sure
and
I'm
because it's
using
got
what
some
I'm
nibs on
supposed
it,
to
you're gonna
use.
have to wear it down a little
Okay.
bit to make it work well. All right. Now, this, I'm gonna set this up. I know you guys can't see very well back there.
Should I pull this?
How, no, it's not you. It's the table. Multiple light sources confuse us. If you look at this, where's the shadows here? You can kind of see there's some shadows here, especially if I had that taped down, so. But there's multiple shadows, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how many lights, right? Now I want to show, and I can't do this all through the class, but I'm going to show you the difference. Michelle, I'm turning the light off for a sec.
Yeah, no problem.
We do our best work in the dark.
See
Wow.
how much more distinct. Now, I can see here, can you see, you can stand up, Roz, if you want, or?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. I'm trying to see a shadow. There's a shadow here, the conical shadow. If,
Will it have a flat top? No.
it would be slightly rounded. It will follow the shape of the object, but it'll be rounded. Wouldn't be flat unless the light were right. So the light is like another eye.
Mm-hmm.
If the light were coming straight, yes, it would be flat, but this is gonna be curved. Tricky to see because it diffuses as it goes off. This is made to do that, because inside here, it has white inside, it's not a single,
Bulb.
it's not a focused bulb. So it is getting, so that's why we're getting these extra kind of shadows off to the side here. But they're easier to see than what we had before. The same with what's happening here. The light's coming down, hitting the corner of this box and ending up down here for the shadow. I'm so sorry. Thanks, Kristen.
Now, the angle of the box itself seems different than the angle of the shadow, and that depends on where the light source is. Wouldn't that be correct?
The
'Cause
angle of the
from where
box is
I'm
different.
sitting,
See, now you've
yeah.
drawn the box. What we're gonna do first is you're gonna draw your box.
Okay.
Ignore everything else.
Yep.
Make sure that form is right and that your lines are at least parallel, slightly converging. Now we're talking about something different, because the shadow is on a different plane than your box, right? It's on this.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is the light comes down, hits the corner of this box, and blocks the light to this, and that's why that corner of the shadow is right there. As it comes down this way, it hits this corner and there. Now, by knowing where that and that is, and how it hits the corner, the base of the box here, that's gonna give us basically the shape of that shadow. Does that make sense? Explain it again. Because this light is very close, it's coming this way, it hits the top of this cone, and at the same angle continues out And that will tell you how far out the shadow of the cone goes. And the ball you can't see, I can show you the ball. The ball comes down, hits the ball, shadow, shadow over here you can't see. Look where the highlight is in the ball from where you're sitting. You probably can't even see it. Can you see it?
I can see the top, a very little bit on the top.
It should be right here, so you see
Yeah.
mostly core.
Yeah.
Now, what most of you can see a lot of is the fact that the light is coming. Yes, you've got that core, and you have some of the reflected light bouncing back off the paper here. But look what's happening with a light that comes and hits this cup and bounces back right here on the ball. See how
I didn't
that's
even notice
changed
that before you said that.
Do you see it now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it, but I didn't remember that it would be from that cup
Yeah.
bouncing off.
Right, there's
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
second,
makes
there's
perfect
reflected
sense.
light coming down from the table paper back.
Mhm.
But then this, because
Yeah.
this, look how bright that is,
Yeah.
right along that
Yeah.
edge of that.
And it's kind of mixed from the core down to where the shadow begins down
I
there.
wanna see it from
From
this
here.
point of
Like
view.
I see two hot, two, you can see two.
Yeah, there's two. So
Yeah.
you have your primary highlight.
Yep.
It blends out.
Yep.
This line is messing up your shadow, sorry about
Yeah.
that. That's a formation line of the ball. That's not really, so here's your core. Your core should be going here, right?
Yeah.
But then it gets interrupted by the reflected light going back here,
Huh.
and then this reflected light here. It's dark down here because that's shadow, reflecting onto the shadow. And you thought shading was simple.
And I thought you just told us how you can figure out how long your shadow is. Is there a thumb method again, or not?
It depends on where your light source is, where it hits the object, and how far it goes out from there. So, it's,
Well, like when I was on my porch, I mean, it was just the sun was out. I had, so,
you're getting so much reflected light there,
Yeah.
because the sun's out, it's so bright, and it's bouncing off your walls and everything else, and.
so should I have measured with my measuring thing and going, oh, that's like
Don't get too tight on measurement, try to.
way out of my comfort zone?
I love it!
But you're talking about, she's talking about the, you know, when you're giving us the tool about spatial relation, like, oh, it's 2 times the
Right.
size of the.
Right,
So that's the, I think what you're asking, she's saying don't use the measuring tool, but just understand, right, how long the shadow is in comparison to the object.
yeah, I mean, use your measuring tool to get used to it, and then once you start seeing it more and more, then you won't need the tool as much, you'll understand.
Yeah, right, you'll train your eye.
So if I wanna put this on a canvas and I wanna make sure my shadow doesn't run off the edge of the paper, I would need to have some concept of how.
Oh, if
that
you
is.
want, I see what you're saying, like, so here, she's talking the overall composition.
Yeah.
Here's her measuring unit.
Yeah.
Everything is in relationship to that one measuring unit there. How high to here, how wide, if I want to include this, do I include just to here,
No.
basically?
Yeah,
Or am I
the
gonna
whole
include this
thing.
whole shadow? Therefore, she's gonna have to measure,
So it doesn't run off.
eyeball measure out to find, yes.
Is that long shadow only on the white paper? Like if your white paper was out further, would it, right where the lamp is now, would it
It looks
actually
like
go
it's
further?
ending right about there.
Oh, I can't see that from
No,
my
it
view.
goes out further from where I'm sitting,
If
a
you-
good 3 inches.
I can see a little bit of a curve right there.
Can you put more white
Oh.
paper? Oh,
What if I do that?
Oh, yeah, now it's all on the white paper.
yeah.
But see how it's darker here because we're getting from the bulb,
Mm.
the reflected from this side inside and the reflection from this side inside. So that's why we're getting these secondary shadows out here and then this one in here.
It also changed.
By
the-
understanding that helps.
It changed the square shadow.
Yes, a
Totally
lot.
Totally
a lot,
changed, yeah.
yeah.
Because
A
now
lot.
it's coming from a different
Yeah,
spot.
angle.
And the part of this, that long shadow where it like sort of ends is fuzzy, unless that's my eyes. Like, it's not a, it's
Not
not a
your
line,
eyes.
where that shadow ends.
Again, because this is not a focused
Yeah.
light.
It's got that white inside, she said.
It's made to refract light and spread it out. you need one of those LED, this special focus lights, but, so we're limited in things like that. But understanding it is what's really important. Okay. You can turn the light back on. Good questions.
I'm the opposite of you.
Say what? Oh, my brain.
Different side of the brain.
All right, I'm gonna turn this off. All right, I am gonna do one quickly, and then guys are gonna draw. Sound good? So because I can't really do this, I'm gonna pretend one of these is this still look. So how do we do? We start corner. Yep, I want to bring it down further. My measure unit, which is this corner, the angle off. And I'm going to do this quite quickly because I want you spending more time drawing than me. This is what the edge of the paper is for. You're going to cover it with a mat if you're going to frame it anyway. So, okay. If you ever see some of my sketches, I do a lot. I start with these because it's big, it moves along quickly, kind of check my angle, I can get things down. Height. I lost it already. This angle is like that. Goes out that way. Vertical. Now I measured this. Going out this way, I could do it very carefully. You want to do it quickly again because I want you guys to draw. And kind of double check if that looks about right. This should be a little longer. So, just quickly, angle. See how I made that in parallel and parallel?
Mhm.
Parallel, but slightly converging. There, all right. Step back, look at my box. It looks like this still should be a little longer. See how easily that adjusts? So this is bent. So that's why it's giving me a hard time.
And that's a charcoal.
This is a vine charcoal, one of your vine charcoals, the stick I gave you. That looks a little better, the relation. See how it looked too thin now? This looks
Yeah.
a little bit better. So my ball's gonna come off there and just a little further away. Cone there, cone touching there. Drop the ball here. Check. 1, 2. So I'm figuring out the ball should be, so I have where the ball's touching the box, here and here. I figure out about how tall the ball is in comparison to my measure, my unit of measure, and my ball should fit in there. See how I just did a few tick
Yeah.
marks to
Yeah.
kind of figure out where that went?
Huh.
And where did I decide here? Oh, halfway. And this is going to be 1, 2, 3, about 3.5, 1, 2, 3.5. So I didn't plan well because my cone's gonna be up to the top here.
See, measuring.
Where's the middle of my cone? If this is one side and this is the side. So. Plus my neck is beginning to.
Do you draw a center line when you're doing a,
I did, I figured
Tall
out where
cylindrical.
the kind of the center line on this is. And I'm gonna make it a shorter cone than what it is. So when I realize that this is one side of it and say here is about where the other side is, I go to the center of that to figure out where the upright, where it's gonna be upright. Someone this week did that vase that was tilty, Faith.
that was me, that was
That
my
drew, when I
wine
saw
cooler.
that, she had a large cylinder that was slanted to begin with, which kind of threw me off.
That was my wine cooler.
Yeah. I just made a bunch of those and gave them to friends.
Ouch.
Okay. So that, now you step back, take a look at it. If this is
Oh,
the
that's
point
cool.
where I just have little tick marks, and this is where you make any adjustments before you move on. You make sure this is accurate. I can see right off, the cylinder's not quite wide enough, you know, I could adjust that a little bit.
Now, would you sketch in a triangle to get your tower type thing?
The cone?
Yeah, the cone, sorry, lost my
That's all right, no, I did
geometry.
too, I called it a cylinder and it's a cone. What do you mean, the triangle?
So you're saying triangle, then cut off the top? and
Yeah,
it
then
becomes
cut
a
off
cone.
the top. Triangle to
It
get
is,
your
it's basically a cone with a
existing.
truncated cone, yeah, it's been chopped off. So, double check, make sure this is going well,
Didn't break?
then decide, so, if you want, you can define this more, but why do we have to do that right now? Because we're gonna change it as we go along. Now our shadow, the light is coming from here, a little above, but mostly from the front. I can't draw an arrow like that on my paper. So I know it's coming in this way. It's gonna hit this. I can tell because of the angle that this shadow is going off here. And it's kind of diffused, so I'm gonna make it a little sharper, just so you can see. And then as that's heading back, because the light is so low, it's gonna hit this and it's going back. Now the light's hitting this corner and heading back over this way. Do you see where I'm going with that? Anyway, okay?
Ah,
And then it's coming this way, hitting this corner, back that way.
huh,
So I know the box shadow is going to be within this area. Then it's going to hit, highlight right about there. It's gonna hit the top.
hmm,
So then I know,
Nice,
and I'm
nice.
gonna try to, but the ball shadow is gonna be back there against the wall. This is weird, because this is a low light. So that's why I'm getting the light so much, so high. It's coming here, hitting there, from.
huh.
So I'm trying to think about where the shadows are going like that. That should be more rounded coming up into that. And now these shadows are all just kind of blending together. You need a short piece. So with the vine charcoal, because it's so light and it's so easy to move around like this, I can easily define. So again, with just the vine charcoal, we can start feeling around inside the picture without making any real permanent changes.
Oh.
Light coming down, I know that this is gonna be, so the highlight is here,
Yep.
here,
Yep.
and here. We did one on the sphere, and we saw how it followed the shape of the sphere. A cone, it's also that highlight and those chord are gonna follow the shape of the cone. So if we had a really exaggerated cone, like this, and the light were coming this way, and this were where the highlight is, it's gonna follow the shape of the cone. So the highlight and the core are gonna be smaller at the top and larger at the bottom.
Mhm. That's what I noticed on my candle, that was kind of roundy and tapered all at the same time.
Yeah, so the highlight would be smaller at the top and larger at the bottom. Does that make sense? So it kind of follows the shape. All right, so let's aim for our core. The light coming in, here's the core on the ball. Now you're gonna see, what you're gonna draw is different than what I'm drawing up here. I'm kind of following this picture right here. When we draw from life, it's gonna be, so you don't copy this. I mean, right now, it's okay to go ahead and, so there's a core there. This is the core on the box, because it's the part furthest away from the light. Here's the core on the cone. And what do we notice about this? See how it gets light down toward the bottom of that core? Why?
Reflected off the box.
It's exactly, you guys are thinking so well. It's bouncing off the ball and off the box, so that's why you're getting, it's gonna be lighter. And there's not much up there, don't worry about that. This is kind of our, remember we had the highlight core and then that blended area?
Yep.
This is kind of receiving secondary light. It's getting bounced light. It's not as bright as what's receiving full light, but it's still getting some. And then the ball kind of, we also kind of blend it in. Notice there's a little cast shadow from the corner of this box
Oh,
across the ball. Now, the cast shadow of the box is going to be flat, right? It's gonna be a straight edge, but it's
On the
falling
curve.
on the ball. So now, once the shadow comes here it's nice and straight, but as this side comes down, it's falling across that ball, so it's gotta follow the shape of that ball that it's falling on,
huh.
right?
Boy, it got 3D in a hurry.
Didn't it? Yeah. So I'm gonna, then, now we check, look at it, and this is where double check, the artist stands by, just like that. Then you can start defining it more. If it's looking good now, you had the form really solid. We've got the basic shading pretty good. Why does this corner here, if this top is getting almost all the same light, and this is getting a little reflected light here and there, I mean, right there it's lighter because it's reflecting off that ball. But over here it seems darker than it does down here.
Yeah.
Because of the juxtaposition of what it's beside, basically. What is it beside? This is lighter. This is gonna appear darker, even though it's actually the same darkness as what's happening over here.
But in your drawing, you want that appearance as well.
You wanna exaggerate, you wanna push that out a little bit, yeah. All right, now I'm gonna blend a little. I'm gonna highlight. This looks really washed out to me, so I'm just not even gonna do too much with that.
Yeah, it almost disappears.
I wanna check my highlight here. See, now, this highlight doesn't go up this high, but watch how nicely that would erase if I wanted to highlight right there. Right there, just pulled it right out really nicely. So that's much nicer than having a balloon around it when you see people, you know, it's a cartoon thing with the balloon.
Mhm.
We're not cartooning here. Trying to get some fine art going. Then if you don't wanna erase it, but you wanna lift some, you can just kind of press that a little bit
Huh.
to lighten up. Your finger can actually act a little bit like an eraser too.
Yeah, because there was a lip around something that was lighter, but it was surrounded by dark, and I thought, how the heck do you get that light? All right.
One thing we're still missing in this too, because now at this point, I can come in with my nice dark charcoal. I'm on newsprint. Newsprint is like the cheapest paper you can practice on. Bringing in our dark. So I went down to about, I think on the value scale, maybe that was a 6 or something. We want to get darker ones in there. How are we going to do that? We get our heavy charcoal, come in. There's a little cast shadow right under the edge of this box. I don't want it to go all the way. Keep looking at what you're drawing too. Okay. Now, this is on a table. See the table? Where's the table? It touches there on the ball, comes across up here, comes out at me. Look how the table even comes out. That's a corner, but it's coming out a little bit at me. Because that cast shadow, and, sorry, I'm jumping around. The cast shadow is also behind the table. It's gonna be a little darker. There's a little reflected light right at the edge of that table. These are great because you find a nice new edge to one of these, and you can follow an object very nicely and get a nice sharp edge. So if I could turn my paper over, which I can't, I would follow that up around that ball like that.
Is
So
that
I-
your charcoal, I'm sorry?
This is the dark chocolate, look at it. Yeah, that one, yeah. I can do it over here, it's kind of down. This is dark too, but not as dark. Down to here. Try to use the edge. If you notice, I am trying to keep my tool on the side as much as possible. I am not shading like this. And you can do crosshatch shading and stuff like that, but that's not what we're after here. I'm using the side of the tool, the largest brush in the sense that I can use for what I'm doing. And this is a, it's like you get painting in pastel or something, you go like, oh yeah, I gotta keep one. I try to keep my pinky for my light colors. These are my darker colors, these are my light colors.
Good thing you have 10 of those.
I know, because there's nothing worse than you get like some real black in here and then you go into your white and you wipe it and you're just like, no, this is the end. Oh, it happens.
Color designated fingers, I better write that down.
Exactly right. A little bit of a cast shadow there, around that cone. Now, the other thing is, we just kind of have the setting in space, so why don't we sit it down a little bit in reality. We have it now on a table. See, Valerie, how the shadow just sets it onto the table?
Yes.
You have some great shading, but just by adding that shadow, it's nice.
Yeah,
This
it
is
doesn't sit
also,
on
the
like-
tablecloth is textured, and it's not receiving direct light.
Oh.
So it's going to have a little bit of, and then it's
Yeah.
reflecting the box a little bit too. Even though it's a textured
Huh.
thing, it's still gonna. Now, if this were a shiny surface, that would really reflect that. See, there's a difference between shading and reflecting. The table behind here, and the wall. Yep, the wall is darker than the table. So it becomes a fully integrated.
Yeah, instead of just objects hanging in space.
Exactly. Now, if I add darkness in the background, I might have to darken these shadows a little bit more to make that stand out from the background. So you're working back and forth, and you're working the picture all over. It's not just finishing one or two things here and there, it's, and you step back, how's that looking?
Good. Looks real.
Feels pretty good, right?
Yeah,
it does.
yeah.
So remember, for the highlights, you can kind of, you know, pick up some of this, blend down here.
Use your
Grab
number
your
4
eraser,
finger.
you're drawing with your eraser, you're pulling out those highlights. Did Michelle leave? Michelle? She's in the pastel society too. Now, I had a line there, but if I soften that line, it'll look more natural, because it's not as much of a line, it's just
That's
a
right.
change of direction.
I
All right,
Our turn.
you ready?
I just wanted to throw something in there.
Yes.
I have a friend who went to 4 years of painting school, and she said the first year they did nothing but charcoals for 1 year before they got to touch paint.
You have to understand, I mean, what I'm giving you guys in, you know, 4 weeks is a crash course, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. But to understand these things, that's how you can move on. I can. How many artists I've seen that just skip that whole drawing step. We can see now from our watercolor class, right? That if we understood this before going into the next step, it works so much better. If I had control of students for 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
because they don't, oh, we had to draw again, but yeah, it makes
Yeah.
a big difference. So much to understand, and then you get toward the end of the drawing, and you're like, why am I gonna try to go into color? You know, black and white is complex enough, and then you're gonna try to put color on top of that? It goes really crazy.
Now, do you add color to a charcoal or typically
You
not?
can. I know some people who will actually do their quick, almost like a little no tan, to get their darks and whites under. It will blend in, like if you're gonna use pastel, it'll pull that up a little bit sometimes. It's almost like, cause you mix particles on the paper. Yeah.
Interesting.
As a summary,
Yes.
do you start off using the vine charcoal, the vine glow?
I-
Yeah, starting off with the shading.
I do, yes, because it's the easiest. I don't bring in my heavy, dark charcoal until I know I have things set where I want them to go. Because once you get this dark, dark charcoal in there, that's not going to move around or erase like your vine charcoal. Use your vine charcoal for as long as you can,
Okay.
as lightly as you can.
So basically, we're not using graphite at all on this
No.
particular
No.
okay, all right.
I mean, you can apply it, but you can't. I don't use graphite very much at all anymore. Start with your form. Get your forms and your measurements, your proportions and relationships down first. So, make sure that's good and accurate before you even think about shading. Have me check it if you want me to. We have about an hour, so I would spend maybe, 15, 20 minutes getting the forms down.
So are we doing that?
I
Or
would
are we
recommend
working
doing
on the
this
picture?
from life, because that you can do at home.
Okay.
Is that okay? Now, would you like me to turn this on?
Yes, because we
Yeah.
can see it
Yeah,
so much
because
better.
Michelle's not here now.
Yeah.
So,
It even helps define the form.
is it too dark if I turn off the lights?
I don't think so.
Let's try it. Let me know. I think, personally, I think you can
Yeah.
see it better that way.
Mhm.
Except you guys can't. Wow. It makes it much more obvious, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can get this in.